I didn't know Reagan was running for chairman.
Okay. I call to order the first general session of the 2008 Biennial Convention of the Republican Party of Texas for the purpose of the temporary organization of the convention. At this time, the chair will recognize Rennie Diaz, chairman of the temporary organization of the convention.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Madam Chairman, the Temporary Credentials Committee reports as follows. The temporary role of the convention was presented and adopted by the Executive Committee, subject to 30 challenges under Rule 27, to be presented to the convention for action. We will now discuss the challenges that came before the committee.
Just say this. I would please ask you to refrain from calling out points of order from the floor. It's important for the delegates to understand the process that we're currently conducting. The convention here today is in temporary organization. The order of business as set by your state Republican Executive Committee under the general rules is being followed, and the chair would request that delegates please respect the decorum of the convention by not making further interruptions. In this way, the convention delegates will be able to complete temporary organization, and the delegates will be able to carry out their responsibilities in their Senate District caucuses in accordance with the rules governing our convention. I will say that the delegates are advised.
Follow the rules!
The delegates are advised that repeated calls for points of order when there has been no breach of rules is conduct which clearly seeks to obstruct and thwart the work of the Assembly. Under Robert's Rules of Order, the chair has the responsibility to prevent delegates from misusing the legitimate forms of motions and procedures to merely obstruct business. When the chair becomes convinced that one or more delegates are using parliamentary form for obstructive purposes, the chair should not recognize those delegates and rule any such motions and procedures out of order, and I would refer you to Roberts Section 39, pages 331 and 332. At this time, I will recognize Chairman Diaz for the next challenge to be considered before this convention body. Please state your name, the Senate district you represent, and your point of order.
Robert X. Johnson, Senate District 25. Debate is always part of vote before you vote. There may not be much debate, but you have to call for debate before you call for the vote.
Are you ready for the question? That is actually calling for debate, and I didn't see any debate on the floor. So, are you now ready for the question? Is there any debate? There are no lights on, so the question is on the adoption of the committee report that Robert Gillespie from Tarrant County not be seated. Chairman Diaz, I will recognize you for the final challenge.
Madam Chairman, the final challenge, I'd like to correct something I said. The committee, I said 20 hours. We actually only worked 15 hours, and we did finish at 2 o'clock in the morning. And I apologize for my voice. That is why the 15 hours. We're now going to discuss the challenges in the committee report with regard to Nueces County. Challenges under Rule 27 to the seating of Art Peterson, Judith Peterson, Mike Bertuzzi, Glenn Ellen Gregors, Jim Kalin, Tony Ballinger, Brent Chesney, Angelica Flores, Nancy Bednar, James Dewar, Joel Yowell, and Claudia Lobel from Nueces County were presented to the committee. The challenge against Arden Peterson was sustained, and the committee recommends that Arden Peterson not be seated as a delegate to this convention. The challenges as to Judith Peterson Mike Bertuzzi, Glenn Ellen Dreggers, Jim Kalin, Tony Ballinger, Brent Chesney, Angelica Flores, Nancy Bednar, James Dewar, Joel Yowell, and Claudia Lobel were all heard extensively by the committee, and they were dismissed. The committee recommends that they be seated as delegates.
The question is on the adoption of the committee report that Kay Arden Peterson not be seated as a delegate from Nueces County, and that Judith Peterson, Mike Bertuzzi, Glenn Ellen Dreggers, Jim Kalin, Tony Ballinger, Brent Chesney, Angelica Flores, Nancy Bednar, James Stewart, Joel Gow, and Claudia Lobel be seated as delegates from Nueces County. Are you ready for the question? I see microphone number 4. Please state your name, the district you represent, and your interrupting motion. Number 3, would you state your name, your district, and your point of inquiry or information?
Yes, this is Vicki Kennedy from SD 8. I believe there's a minority report that's been submitted to the chairman, and it was signed by more than 20% of the membership of the Credentials Committee. I want to know how that was being dealt with.
Well, in order for a minority report to be recognized, it must be completed and signed and turned into the committee chairman prior to the adjournment of the committee. The subject of the alleged minority report was never presented to the committee prior to the adjournment of that committee meeting. When that temporary committee adjourned, it was no more. So the minority report was not recognized as it did not follow the rules or Robert's Rules of Order. Microphone number 2, would you please state your name, your district, and your point of inquiry?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. My name is Robert Steinhagen, Senatorial District 16. I'd like to call the question.
The question has been called. All those in favor of calling the question, which means we go to an immediate vote on this. All in favor of calling the question, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Aye. The ayes have it. The question is on the adoption of the committee report that Kay Arden Peterson not be seated as a delegate from Nueces County, and that Judith Peterson, Mike Bertuzzi, Glenn Ellen Dreggers, Jim Kalin, Tony Ballinger, Brent Chesney, Angelica Flores, Nancy Bednar, James Stewart, Joel Yao, and Claudia Lobel be seated as delegates from Nueces County. All those in favor of adopting the committee report on this challenge, please stand. Thank you. You may be seated. All those opposed, please stand. You may be seated. The affirmative being in the majority, the motion is adopted. Mr. Arden Peterson is not seated as a delegate, and Judith Peterson, Mike Bertuzzi, Glenn Ellen Dreggers, Jim Kalin, Tony Ballinger, Brent Chesney, Angelica Flores, Nancy Bednar, James Stewart, Joel Gow, and Claudia Lobel may be seated as delegates in Nueces County. Mr. Chairman?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. That concludes the report from the Temporary Credentials Committee.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for all your hard work, and please know if you were a committee member, we really do appreciate it. We know this is very difficult. Individuals who have just been seated as delegates by the convention. Microphone number 1, please state your name, your district, and your interrupting motion.
Madam Chairman, Jeremy Blosser, SD 10. I rise to a point of order.
State your point of order.
Republican Party Rule 27D states that delegates from delegations that are being challenged may not be seated until the challenge is resolved. As the chair noted previously, delegates who are not credentialed should not have been voted. I believe I heard a comment from a delegate from a delegation that a challenge was filed against. Specifically, SD 20 had competing delegations filed, creating by necessity full delegation challenges. Those delegates should not have been voting in the previous challenges.
Your point of order is not well taken.